Welcome to CINEPRO, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. The movie begins in the beautiful city of Hawaii, known for its enjoyable sea and vast forests. We see the adventurous young man, Sean, who loves riding his motorcycle up his mountain and is so skilled that he performs very dangerous stunts and ventures into many rugged paths. One day, while in the forest, he hears strange sounds nearby and suddenly sees a man hanging upside down in front of him, warning him to run quickly before they catch him. A luxurious car appears, and men, including Eddie, step out, beating the man to death with a baseball bat. Sean, terrified by what he witnessed, flees as fast as he can. The sound of his motorcycle alerts Eddie's gang, who try to kill him by shooting at him but fail. Sean returns home, unable to think or decide what to do. He learns from the news about the details of the murder, with no one knowing who committed it. Suddenly, someone tries to break into his apartment. To his shock, it's Eddie's men coming to kill him. Sean quietly escapes through the window. At that moment, an FBI agent appears, helps him stay calm, and waits for Eddie's men to enter the apartment. The agent shoots them, eliminates them, and takes Sean away before the rest of the gang arrives. The agent Flynn wants to know why Sean didn't report the crime to the police. Sean explains that he knows the city's police are corrupt and suspects they're working with Eddie. Flynn confirms this and introduces himself, taking Sean to the investigation headquarters. However, Sean is still very scared and denies being in the forest, but Flynn knows he was there through fingerprints found on a box near the body. Flynn convinces Sean to testify against the gang. At Honolulu International Airport, an important flight is about to take off. Among the passengers is the famous rapper Siri G and his entourage, Troy and Lori. The girls are thrilled to see him and want his autograph and pictures. We are introduced to the flight attendants on this trip, Tiffany and Claire, who discover that the FBI is searching the plane because Flynn and Sean will be boarding. This means the first-class seats are fully occupied, and the pilot instructs Claire to deal with the passengers who are supposed to be in first class, moving them to economy. This causes a lot of frustration for the displaced passengers. Meanwhile, a suspicious employee loads boxes onto the plane, sprays them with a type of pheromone, and makes a phone call saying the pheromones will drive them crazy. Flynn and Sean board the plane and take their seats. Claire endures complaints from the first-class passengers and reluctantly stays quiet. Sean, on the other hand, is thoroughly enjoying his first time in first class. He meets Flynn's partner, a fellow agent, and they contact headquarters to update them on the plane's location. In economy class, the smaller seats and crowded conditions irritate the passengers. One businessman gets annoyed by a barking dog next to him, whose owner, Mercedes, is happily taking selfies with her pet. Nearby, a child cries continuously, prompting the businessman to change seats. Siri G and his crew are also unhappy with their cramped space, but Siri's mood changes when he notices Mercedes and decides to sit near her. Meanwhile, brothers Tommy and Teflon board the plane for their first solo trip, feeling nervous. Tiffany, unable to stop thinking about Sean since she saw him, finds an excuse to sit next to him and strike up a conversation. Once all the passengers are on board, the plane prepares for takeoff. The flight attendants explain the safety instructions that could save lives in case of an emergency. After everything is set, the pilot and co-pilot receive clearance for takeoff. The flight attendants begin serving drinks to the passengers. Tiffany takes the opportunity to sit beside Sean, introduce herself, and learn he's not a dangerous criminal but someone testifying against a gang leader. She finds this very intriguing. However, amidst this seemingly normal flight, something unusual is happening. Hidden in the plane's cargo hold is a large box filled with dangerous snakes of various kinds. The box is set to open automatically at a specific time. Meanwhile, a boxer named Sean catches the attention of a flight attendant, who tells him he also boxes and performs some showy moves, only to embarrass himself when the passengers laugh at him. Later that night, as he checks on the plane to ensure everything is fine, he finds Claire upset and treating him poorly due to the trouble caused by their presence. He apologizes to calm her down and leaves. Meanwhile, Siri G flirts with Mercedes and sits next to her. At that moment, the cursed box opens, releasing the snakes into the plane. Fueled by the pheromones, the snakes begin attacking everything in sight. In the passenger cabin, a young couple sneaks into the bathroom to smoke. They turn off the smoke detector, but suddenly, a snake descends from the ceiling, biting both of them on their necks amidst their screams. No one suspects anything unusual. The snakes continue to move through the plane, biting electrical wires and causing power failures. The alarm goes off in the cockpit, and the captain realizes there's a problem. He contacts air traffic control for help, reporting the emergency. The snakes spread among the passengers' seats, moving stealthily. A man who goes to the bathroom encounters a snake, which bites him. He hits his head against the wall, sustaining severe injuries and collapsing. The captain tries to investigate the issue and goes to the electrical room to restore power. However, a large snake attacks him, biting his neck and killing him instantly. The co-pilot, Rick, finds the captain's body and assumes he died of a heart attack. Claire, terrified, runs to Flynn and Sanders for help. They take them to see the situation and help them. Of course, Rick informs the control tower about what happened. He asks the passengers to fasten their seatbelts and remain seated, but he doesn't realize there's a snake next to him in the cabin. When he sees it, he panics and starts hitting it until the oxygen masks accidentally drop, along with the snakes, which fall from the ceiling. In a terrifying moment, the snakes begin attacking the passengers, causing chaos on the plane. Sanders goes down to check what's happening, but when he sees a large number of snakes in front of him, he freezes and can't move. The snakes continue attacking wildly, and some passengers try to defend themselves by hitting the snakes. Due to lightning, the plane shakes, causing passengers, including Sanders, to fall. Sanders finds himself surrounded by snakes and screams in fear as he gets bitten. Flynn comes down to defend him with an electric prod, scaring the snakes away. They look ahead at the disaster as people fall everywhere, and the snakes attack everyone. Flynn tries to navigate through the seats, electrocuting any snake in his path, and urges the passengers to move quickly to the front of the plane. Unfortunately, anyone bitten by a snake faces certain death due to the venom's potency. Tommy, who was hiding, is unlucky as a snake bites him nearby, leaving him unsure of what to do. In the chaos, panicked passengers trample on someone lying on the floor, killing him. Sri G is terrified and runs to hide in the bathroom, but when he opens it, 2 dead bodies fall on him. Meanwhile, Flynn sees passengers getting bitten and feels helpless. He tries to electrocute as many as possible. Once he gathers everyone at the front, they start building a barrier using luggage to block the snakes. Mercedes regains consciousness after fainting and notices snakes moving toward her. She becomes even more terrified upon seeing corpses all around her. She screams for help but can't move. Shane appears, carries her on his shoulder, and takes her to the front, saving her. The passengers in the front secure any entry points the snakes could use to get in. They realize Thomas and his brother are missing and inform Flynn, who searches until they find them hiding, only to discover that Thomas has been bitten. At that moment, flight attendant Grace hears a baby crying in the snake-infested area. She rushes to save the baby, navigating through the snakes. She finds the baby and grabs it just before a snake can bite it, shielding it with her body. Unfortunately, she gets bitten in the process but manages to save the baby and return to the front with Maria. Sadly, the venom is too strong for her, and she succumbs, along with Sanders, who also dies a horrible death. Flynn is desperate to find a solution to prevent the situation from worsening. He asks Rick for a plan, but Rick says, "We're at 25,000 feet, and if one of these snakes damages a critical wire, we could crash." With no other option, Rick decides to fly for 2 more hours until they reach the airport and informs the control tower about the situation. They search for a doctor on board and find one, but he's already dead with a snake in his mouth, crushing their hopes of saving Grace. Flynn refuses to give up and contacts Harris, suspecting that Eddie planted the snakes on the plane to kill him. The flight attendant suggests extracting the venom to minimize its effects. Flynn agrees, but when he realizes the flight attendant will have to do it instead of a doctor, he hesitates. Meanwhile, Maria helps Tommy by using olive oil to puncture the swollen area and extract the venom. Shane, overwhelmed and unable to help, is scolded by Flynn, who tells him that everything they've done so far has been for him. Flynn insists they can't let it all be in vain and that Shane must step up when Harris calls. Flynn then notices the snakes trying to breach the barrier they've built, so he attacks them with a fire extinguisher and starts making weapons out of broken glass bottles to kill them. Harris contacts snake expert Bryce, who advises him from the lab. Bryce explains that they need to identify the types of snakes on the plane to provide the correct antidote for each venom. Standard hospitals only stock antidotes for common snakes, and any other antidote would take time to prepare. Bryce contacts Flynn and advises him to isolate the snakes in one area. Flynn says they've already tried that, but it didn't work. Bryce suspects something is making the snakes act so aggressively and irrationally, possibly a stimulant. To figure it out, he asks Flynn to identify the snakes precisely. Meanwhile, the passengers decided to move, and the snake bites him immediately. With no other option, the man confesses to Harris about the antidote and reveals all the snake types on the plane. He also discloses that the person funding him bought these snakes. This gives them a new lead. the case of killing the passengers and attempting to kill the rest. All this information reaches Flynn and the passengers, who finally rejoice. However, when Flynn tries to speak to Rick, he finds him dead, and the cockpit filled with snakes. Flynn quickly seals the cockpit, creating yet another problem. No one is left to fly the plane. He searches for anyone on board with flying experience and finds only Troy, who has over 2,000 hours of experience on a flight simulator game. Now the challenge is how to enter the cockpit with all the snakes inside. They tie themselves securely to the plane seats, and Troy shoots the cockpit window, breaking it. Due to the air pressure, everything inside the plane is sucked out, including the snakes and passengers' belongings. Troy is thrilled to finally fly a real plane and begins maneuvering it. The intense pressure causes the opening to widen, and Claire and Tiffany hold on to their seats. Meanwhile, the snakes in the lower deck are also sucked out. Troy manages to stabilize the plane and lowers its altitude to normalize the air pressure. He contacts the control tower, shocking them with his casual tone. When they learn his flying experience comes from video games, they panic. Flynn assures them that Troy is the only one with any experience on board and asks for help to land the plane, or everyone will die. Troy is instructed to clear the runways and attempts to land the plane. He manages to slow down and land safely. The plane slides sideways but ultimately stops. Everyone screams with joy. The police and medics rush to the scene, rescuing the injured passengers, who are relieved to have survived the nightmare. They identify the snake that bit Tommy and administer the antidote. As Sean prepares to exit the plane, a snake suddenly appears and tries to bite him. Flynn shoots the snake, revealing that Sean was wearing a bulletproof vest and is unharmed. Flynn and Sean become friends, exchange numbers with the girls they're interested in, and decide to head to the beach to surf together. And that's how the story ends. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. See you soon, and goodbye. On the plane, but Flynn refuses to explain. Shane then reveals that the snakes are there because of him. He witnessed a murder committed by a notorious gang leader. Flynn assures the passengers he can handle the situation and instructs them to collect any dead snakes they find so the doctor can identify them and prepare the antidote. Rick, piloting the plane, thinks he's alone until he suddenly notices a snake next to him. He quickly jumps, but the snake bites his arm. He struggles with the snake until it falls into the equipment room. After the passengers collect several snakes, Mercedes suggests taking photos of them and sending them to the doctor for faster identification instead of relying on descriptions. However, she senses something is wrong when the plane tilts forward. She rushes to the cockpit and finds Rick unconscious. When she tries to help him, a snake attacks her. Trapped in the cockpit, she grabs an axe and manages to kill the snake. Flynn rushes to the cockpit and discovers the disaster. He asks Claire to help him regain control of the plane. At the same time, the barrier collapses, and the snakes start attacking again. The situation becomes catastrophic. Some passengers, out of fear, run and fall to the ground, where the snakes attack them. The remaining passengers have no choice but to move to the upper deck. At that moment, a massive snake falls from the ceiling, and the terrified passengers huddle together on the stairs. But because the weight is heavy, the stairs break and they fall to the ground. The giant snake attacks the businessman, wraps around him, crushes him, and swallows him completely. The passengers take advantage of this opportunity, climb up, and create a barrier on the stairs. Meanwhile, Flynn tries with all his might to lift the plane. They are just above the sea and about to crash. At the last moment, they manage to rise again, saving the situation. They communicate with the control tower to report what's happening, but they discover that Rick is alive. He returns to the cockpit and activates autopilot mode. During this time, the passengers succeed in creating a barrier from an inflatable boat to prevent the snakes from reaching them. After the snakes arrive, they discover that these snakes were collected from all over the world. To create an antidote for each one of them would take days. However, to gather them in the first place would require a long time, and surely someone already had all these types. There's only one person in America crazy enough to raise them and live in the desert. On the plane, everyone tries to compose themselves and calm their nerves. Grace, despite her near-death experience, finds solace in saving the child from death. However, the passengers notice that the temperature is rising, which means the air conditioning and air purification system are not working, making breathing difficult. Flynn goes to inquire about the plane's condition from Rick and learns that there's also an issue with the engines, requiring them to reduce speed. For the air conditioning to work, someone needs to go down and manually turn it on. As Flynn hears a commotion outside, he steps out angrily, only to find himself calming a passenger who had lost his temper. The passenger manages to grab Flynn's gun in his hysteria, shocking his friends. They calm him down until Flynn retrieves the weapon and makes him sit. The electricity cuts out as well. Grace dies, and Claire collapses. Feeling her end is near, Field comforts her, telling her they need her strength. He goes down to turn on the air conditioning. Upon opening the door, he encounters snakes but manages to eliminate them and continues his path. He reaches the control panel, crawling through the wiring passage. He activates the switch just as the snakes attack, but he fends them off with fire and restores the lights and air conditioning. As he returns, he finds himself surrounded by snakes. He fights to defend himself, killing the snake before it bites him. Meanwhile, Harris reaches the snake farm in the desert, confronts the madman, and a shootout ensues. Harris injures the man, who falls onto a